Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts with a new episode of The Whole Athlete, and we are recording this in a few weeks before Ironman Hawaii, but I'm posting this the week of Ironman Hawaii, and I have the Ironman man himself, Mr. Bob Babbitt, on the line. How are you doing today, Bob?
Great, Debbie. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. Excited we can get you on here. I know you're so busy and you've got a big week coming up, and let's kind of go with your background. I was looking up on your Babbittville.com. You've got if people aren't familiar with your background, you started racing triathlons in the 1970s. So you did the first Ironman triathlon back in 1980. But now you're the 30 years now. You've been the co-founder of Competitor Magazine and the Challenge Athletes Foundation. You created the Competitor Radio, the Muddy Buddy Ride, and Run Series. You've done a lot in your career. So talk a little bit kind of about yourself, and then we'll dive into your Ironman Kona week when you'll be working every day with the athletes.
Sure. Basically, 78 as a PE teacher, and at the school, I was actually living here in San Diego with a guy who went on to become world mountain bike champion named Ned Overend, but mountain bikes hadn't been invented yet, which gives you an idea how long ago that was. And we met rock climbing down in Mexico and read about this race called the Ironman. This was 1979. First Ironman had 15 starters and 12 finishers in 1978. 1979, 15 starters, 12 finishers. And that year there was an article in Sports Illustrated, which was sort of the Bible for any athlete back then. And we read this article about a local guy named Tom Warren who had won the Ironman in 79, and Ned and I decided that, that sounds really cool. We didn't know what the heck it was. We went and bought bikes at a police auction. My bike, the whole back end had been in a fire. So it was a $75 bike. It had flat-proof tires on it, put pannier, sleeping bag, and tent because I thought you swam 2.4, rode 56, camped out, rode back the next day, and ran the marathon, which really makes a hell of a lot more sense. So, Ned and I, we packed up and went over to Oahu. It was before the event moved to the Big Island. And you had to have a crew back then, and had a support crew that was with me all day long. I was a school teacher, so one of the kids I worked with, her dad lived over in Hawaii, and he and his girlfriends came over and they came by in their little Fiat convertible and crewed for me all day long. I gave them my 20 loaves of Hawaiian sweetbread and my Gatorade, figured in my tent and my sleeping bag and panniers, and we were off to the races. So it was one of those events that I didn't know I could finish it. I didn't really know what the hell it was. And when I did finish it, in spite of getting a Big Mac fries and a Coke at mile 25 and a bike and a root beer snow cone at mile 80 of the bike ride and a full-on 45-minute body massage at the end of the bike, between the bike and the run. And it was one of those things when I was running down Diamond Head with the little Fiat convertible behind me, lighting up the road, and I came into Kapiolani Park and just saw this line across the road and a light bulb above my head, and I was waiting for this marching bands and all this festivities when we finished this crazy thing, and all I heard was a voice in the darkness from the side. He yelled, "Hey you!" I'm like, "Yeah, you in the race? Yeah, you're done." There was one guy in the park doing one-arm push-ups, but it was one of those things when people talk about their aha moments. I knew this event was special. Based on the 108 of us who had raced that year, I just knew the sport was going to be special. And I came back and eventually left teaching and went to work for a magazine called Running News. It became Running and Triathlon News. And then in 87, started a magazine called Competitor to cover running, triathlon, and cycling. And then I've been involved in that world ever since.
Wow. You are kind of helped develop the industry to what it is today, and you continue to grow with it. It sounds like with all the other races that have come about since that original Ironman day.
Well, and what's been fascinating about it is when you talk about endurance, it really is, this is the endurance entertainment marketplace, right? The whole idea is to have fun. And the only reason triathlon started at Fiesta Island in 1974 was the San Diego Track Club guys got a little bored just running every day. So it was like, hey, what if we go out to Fiesta Island and Mission Bay and we'll do a little run, then we'll jump in the water and swim from this little island to that little island. Then we'll get on our bikes, and then we'll do that little swim again. It wasn't set up. It was a workout. It wasn't set up to be a real sport.
Yeah.
And then when you think about it, then the first Ironman came out of John Collins and Judy Collins had been in those early 74 and 75. They had been in those early triathlons and then moved to Hawaii, and they created the Ironman basically based on that. So everything has happened sort of organically over time, and if you look at it, we didn't know we were building an industry. And I always tell people, when you lead with passion, good things happen. When you don't go out looking, how do I make a living? None of us thought about that. Mm-hmm. It was never about, gosh, how do we make money? It was, how do we do something cool? How do we have fun? And usually when you do that, the money follows.
Yeah, I always love the quote that love what you do. Your job is something you love doing. It's not just something you dread to do, that you enjoy. It doesn't seem like a job. So you guys really took a passion of sport that you love doing and helped make it something you get actually paid for.
Well, and what's fascinating about that, when you look at how much, especially triathlon, has grown over the years and became an Olympic sport, we all worked together to grow the sport to become an Olympic sport. And so even if John Duke owned Triathlete magazine and I had Competitor magazine and Dan Enfield had Slow Twitch, we were competing, but we all knew we had an obligation to grow the sport. We weren't competing to the point of trying to have everybody support us and not support anybody else. We needed to grow the brand. That was really the reason behind creating what became the first podcast with Competitor Radio. We started that in 1990.
Wow. And
the reason was I went to a local radio station here in San Diego. I still do the shows every Sunday night from 8 to 10 since 1990. And the reason for the show was I just sort of thought, you know what, imagine if you were listening to sports radio back then. There was an interview with Joe Montana, the football player, Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, and then you heard an interview with Paul Newby Frazier or Dave Scott or Mark Allen. You'd think, as a sports fan, these people are important too. I should care about these sports. Well, that was the idea, was we weren't necessarily just growing the Competitor brand. We were growing the entire industry. So there would be more showcase for running, triathlon, cycling, mountain biking, and that was the magic behind it. Was every runner is, everybody who's a triathlete is a runner. Everybody who's a triathlete is a cyclist. Everybody's a swimmer. All of these things work together, and if we integrate more, all of them will continue to grow.
So you kind of created the Competitor magazine from that. People wanted to know more and kind of connect all the sports together and get people updated information. Yeah,
it was funny because Running and Triathlon News went out of business in 1987, and so I was out of job, and I had been a PE teacher, and my partner she became my partner, but she was the art teacher at the same school, and she came with me to work at Running and Triathlon News and become the photographer, Lois Schwartz, she did the Iron War shot and one of the greatest photographers in history. Well, so the two of us, when Running on Triathlon News went out of business, were out of a job. And I went and met with a couple of publishers who published cycling magazines in California, similar to Running and Triathlon News. They were free magazines. And I went to both of them and said, if we started a magazine that had running, triathlon, and cycling in it, I think it could become very popular. And both of them told me the same thing. They said, listen, we will never put a skinny runner on the cover of a magazine. And triathlon's a fad, and it'll be gone in 5 years. This is 1987. And so we came home, and some friends of ours and advertisers called us into a meeting and said, guys, here's a check for $17,000. Go start your own magazine. And that was in May of 87, and in June of 87, we came out with the first edition of Competitor. We were in a guy's storage room with 20,000 pounds of bike racks over our head in 200 square feet that we were paying $200 a month for. We didn't pay ourselves for the first year and a half, but we loved what we were doing. We loved the people we were meeting. We never got past the point that understanding that our sports change lives for the better every single day of the year. People become better parents, better employees, better employers because of the adrenaline and the success that comes with swimming, biking, and running.
Yeah, the self-esteem and it's just so much more. We talked over the years. We've had this podcast, 300 episodes, and it's just talking about how it transformed the whole you from the inside out, doing racing, but also what goes along with it and the other elements of taking care of yourself. You just having a goal and having something to work towards is so rewarding. And once we had a podcast on why we do Ironmans a few years ago, and it was, made me think after I did 15 of them and haven't been able to race for 4 years, but it was like, wait, why do we do what we do? But it was crossing the finish line, and, finishing is always so exciting, but it's the people around you and that energy you get, at least for myself, and just feeling just on that, having that high when you finish, and just it makes yourself feel so good. So I think a lot of people do races for that reason. I think not just to get in shape and lose weight, because that doesn't always happen either.
Well, the interesting part is there was a point there a number of years ago where people were thinking, gosh, I think people really enjoy the boutique races. They want to go to races where they're not that crowded. They're less threatening because there's less people there. And then there was a study done, and what came out of it was just the opposite. People do a lot of solitary workouts. They get up at 4 a.m, they get on their spin bike or they get on their trainer and they go run on their own, they go swim on their own, they balance their family and work. And when they go to a race, they want to be with kindred spirits. They want to be with other people who have shared that with them and see that they're not alone, and see 2,000-3,000 triathletes who all have basically done the same thing they have done. And in those races, you're not competing with anybody but yourself. Yeah. You're pushing yourself and you're pushing your limits. And that's really what our sport is all about. And then when people are able to see what they can accomplish, that what this little sport can do for them, it's very, very special. And if you think about it, look at our most successful events. Yeah, we have big triathlons in New York and Chicago, and those are awesome. But where triathlon really resonates is what I call off-Broadway. You go to Lake Placid during that race. You go to St. George during that race. You go to Roth, Germany. Mm-hmm. Roth, Germany, most of these events are built on hotel business. You're bringing thousands of people in because, these cities are paying to bring these events in that are filling up hotel rooms. Roth has 14 hotel rooms in that whole city. People come and camp and they do homestays, and people come for the camaraderie because of the epic nature of the event, to go up Solar Hill with 50,000 people on the side of the road. Those are the moments that keep us coming back, and that's the payback for all those solitary mornings of being in a cold pool at 5:30 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Or going out on the roads at 5, 6 at night. Because you need to get your workout in, or being on the trainer. All of that payback is going to those races and being with kindred spirits and celebrating what you accomplish.
Yeah, that's great. And you're not affiliated with Ironman. You're doing this for all triathlons, and you guys have your own race circuit. So it's not just, it's just triathlon in general and other sports. So.
Well, not just triathlon. No, I started the Muddy Buddy series, and that was all about, we did everything. If I look at it, everything that we have done comes off of Ironman. We came back from Ironman. I had done this race called a ride and tie, 2 people and a horse. Right? You take turns running and riding a horse, right? So it's you and I are going from point A to point B. I start on a horse, go 3-4 miles, tie the horse to a tree, start running. You run up, untie the horse, ride the horse past me, and we leapfrog back and forth. That was the concept. I'd never ridden a horse before, and a friend asked me to come, and I would be the runner guy, and he would ride the horse more, but I still would have to ride the thing. I had no idea how to ride a horse. And so I get on this. Well, first of all, he didn't tell me they started the race with a shotgun. So he's on the horse first. He ties him up to a tree. I get to the horse after 5 miles of running, After that shotgun blast, the horse is like pawing the sky, and I have to get on this thing. So as I'm riding on this horse, holding on to his mane, I'm thinking, this is a cool concept. We got to lose the horse. And then at mile 20, it was a 28-mile race. At mile 20, we come into the vet check and a transition area, and I've been running for, at that point, about out of 20 miles, I ran about 16 of them. And at that point, I figured the horse has to be tired. So the idea was, okay, I'm going to get on this horse and walk the last 8 miles. And they're loading the horse into a little horsey corral. And I'm like, well, what's going on? So they go, his hooves are sore. His hooves are sore? I've run freaking 16 miles. Let me get on that thing. No, I had to run the last 8 miles, which really validated this is a cool concept. You definitely need to lose the horse. So that following Thanksgiving, I decided to create a ride and tie using what we call butt bikes. The bikes, this would be, again, before mountain bikes, the bikes you'd get at the local down by the beach, right? The bikes with the big butt seats and the rusted out spokes. And so the idea was that we would, take turns riding and running. But since it was, this is Thanksgiving, and most of the guys who I was Tinley and Molina and all those guys, they were all fit from Ironman in October, but nobody wanted to do anything serious. So I went out and got stuffed animals. We hit them all over the course. Every animal you brought back was worth time off your total time.
Oh,
we had a spam station. Every piece of spam you ate was worth time off your total time. It was a total goof.
Yeah.
Well, so all of a sudden, after a couple of years, I'm getting, 150, 200 teams showing up for this thing, no permits. I'm in a turkey suit, welcome turkey banners all over the place. And, this thing is taking, and entry fee was 10 cans of food for a local charity. And then a number of years later, the president of Brooks Shoes were trying to sell him advertising in Competitor magazine. And he's like, listen, I don't have ad budget, but I do have promotional budget if you guys can come up with a cool event. I'm like, well, what if we took my ride and tie and added some obstacles and added a mud pit or two? And he goes, I'm in. And so that, 99, we started the first Muddy Buddy. It grew to 18 events around the country. We did 4,000 people at Disney World down in Florida. But all that started, again, from Ironman. Iron Kids, I put on the first Iron Kids event I came back from Ironman, and the kids that I was teaching were all into this whole Ironman thing. So I went down to Tijuana, picked up some incredible Hulk banks, these ceramic things, and we called it the Iron Kids Triathlon. This is like 1981. And that was the first Iron. It was like a half-mile run and an obstacle course and a jump in an inner tube and go across a pool.
Wow.
And it was a total hoot. So anyway, so everything, and then the Challenge Athletes Foundation.
Yeah,
a friend of ours named Jim McLaren was a 300-pound football player. 1985, he was taking acting classes in New York, was hit by a bus. He was on his motorcycle, going to class, got hit by a bus, thrown 90 feet in the air, dead on arrival, lived, ended up losing his lower leg, and came back, and from that, with a prosthetic that nowadays would be considered prehistoric, and he ran a 3:16 marathon, went 10:42 in Kona, and changed the world in terms of he was the Babe Ruth of amputee athletes. Well, flash ahead 8 years, he's racing in Mission Viejo, California. He's on his bike. A van goes through a closed intersection, hits the back of his bike, propels him head first into a pole. Jimmy becomes a quadriplegic. And at that point, myself and Rick Kozlowski and Jeffrey Escow got together, and the idea was, let's put on an event to get Jimmy a van that he can drive with his hands, a hand-controlled vehicle, give him some semblance of independence. From the athletes I covered through Competitor, the paralyzed athletes, the one thing I heard over and over again, the worst part about being paralyzed was, I'm 30 years old. Here come mom and dad back in my life. No sense of self, no sense of independence. So that our goal became to buy Jimmy that van, raise $25,000. We raised $49,000. We thought our job was done. And these 3 amputee women came up to us and said, you guys, it's great what you just did for Jimmy, but did you know if you have an injury like this, your health insurance will cover a walking around leg or an everyday chair. Anything to do with sport is considered a luxury item. It's not covered by your insurance, which seemed ridiculous because all of us know that sport is not a luxury item. It's an essential part of who we are and what we do. So then it became, we got our 501(c) and became the Challenge Athletes Foundation, and now we have raised over $90 million, sent out over 15,000 grants.
Wow.
Just this year alone, we sent out 2,448 grants totaling $3.7 million. to keep athletes in the game of life through sport. And it's been the greatest blessing. And what has proved to me over and over again, this all started with the little sport of triathlon. And it's a small sport with a huge heart. And all these athletes who have basically gone, we come in at the point of trauma. They are at the lowest point of their life. And then we're watching them go to the Ironman. We're watching them go to the Paralympics. There is nothing better in the world. One quick story I had, I was at the Paralympics last summer in Rio. And this woman, Deborah Jackson, came up to me in the lobby of the hotel, and she goes, Bob, 8 years ago, Challenged Athletes Foundation gave my son Desmond a running leg. He's 16 now. Tomorrow night, he's running in the finals at the 200 meters here in Rio.
Oh, that's such a rewarding job. I mean, just how many people you're inspiring and making an impact on so many lives.
Well, that's what, we are involved with a sport that can be very selfish.
Yeah.
Right? You're out there swimming, biking, running, time away from your family. And the rest of us. Yes. And so when you start thinking about what you can do to give back, what you can do to help other people, then it's easier to rationalize putting all those hours in, because you know that you're helping out get sport back in the lives of people who've lost that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. So how can people get involved in that if they want to contribute?
Challengedathletes.org. They can go on there to donate. They can go there to volunteer. Our big San Diego Triathlon Challenge weekend is actually our San Diego Triathlon Challenge, our 24th annual, which is a 1 mile swim and a 44 mile bike and a 10 mile run. But it's really, most people do it as relay. They bring family and friends. We have a 4.5 hour spin class on the grass. We have we'll have probably 140 challenged athletes out there that weekend. We do this amazing running clinic and a little run for our amputee athletes and our wheelchair athletes. It's a incredibly special weekend.
When is that?
It's October 22nd. Sunday, October 22nd is the triathlon. The run clinic that we do is the day before. We'll have over 100 amputees out there running on prosthetics, some of them for the very first time, and some of them are coming off of Paralympic medals with running 10.91 or 21.7 for 200 meters. So it's a wide. It was very special about the weekend. A lot of our challenged athletes come from small cities, and even with the proliferation of the internet and everything that's out there, people don't necessarily know what's available, or for a lot of them have never met another person like them with who's an amputee or wheelchair athlete. So they come to San Diego Triathlon Challenge, and there's 140 others who are facing similar challenges. Plus, the guys who build the legs are there. The guys who build the wheelchairs are there. The parents who are all mentoring each other are there. It's I had one mom come up to me a couple years ago. She goes, Bob, for 364 days a year, my child is stared at like he's a freak. For 1 day a year, he's like everybody else. And that's here at the San Diego Triathlon Challenge. And that's again, a huge part of why we do what we do.
Yeah, why you do it. It's when you hear those comments. Yeah, one of my friends I swim with, Master Swimming here up in Bellevue, Washington, Brian Myers, does that. I just told him today, I was talking to, he's like, I'll see you in October.
Perfect. Well, and then you got Andre Kylik up there, who just did the Race Across America, the first wheelchair athlete, hand cycle athlete to do that on his own. Took him 12 days. Yeah. And Andre's from up your way as well.
Yeah. Just these people, it does put in perspective that I think a lot of triathletes and just anybody, we all just kind of forget about how fortunate we are and don't really take time to support other people that could use a little extra cheering and
exactly. Yep. And you know what? And when people come out, and they come in, we also do a bike ride down the coast, a $1 Million Challenge, 620-mile bike ride that actually starts on October 14th and finishes on the 20th of October. But it's beautiful, and it's all 5-star, and it's 120 riders, and there'll be hand cycle and amputee athletes on the ride as well. It's it's one of those things that it changes lives. You ride with somebody on a hand cycle for 7 days, 620 miles, you get a sense of what their challenges are. And you realize this, and you realize how important that piece of equipment is. When you look at it as a $2,500 piece of metal, well, that $2,500 piece of metal is taking somebody, 620 miles down the coast, Plus, it's allowing them to go out with their kids, and the kids are going for a bike ride, and dad or mom is in a hand cycle. So their life is as close to what you'd consider normal as possible, rather than dad not having a hand cycle, or mom stuck inside while the family goes out and participates. It allows everybody to participate.
And gives them more of a purpose, too, I think, being out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
you have to come down sometime.
I know. I would love to do that. I love that stuff. You know, it's because I started doing triathlons, Ironman in 2001, and worked with Mark Allen for a long time, 2004 on, and just stepping away from the sport and just, you know, being more involved and giving back a little more to the community that gave me so much. I think a lot of us, eventually, you don't do Ironmans as much anymore, and you step away and you still want to be involved in the industry, which is, you know, what I do with the podcast and hopefully going to Ironman Hawaii myself and just working with people. But it's just so much fun to stay involved even if you're not racing anymore. So I think eventually you have to give back in a different way and still be involved and feel that energy and passion and purpose.
Absolutely.
So going into your website, a couple questions I want to get. Babbittville,
Sure.
You have Babbittville Radio, and you have Bob Babbitt's Endurance World Newsletter. You're doing a lot, and then you have a blog, Babbittville. What's your Babbittville? And then you get to Breakfast from Kona.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we started that 8 years ago, and the idea was, you know, we've got a lot of amazing athletes, and giving people a little up close and personal feel for who these athletes are. So everybody from our champions, Jan Frodeno and Daniela Reith, to some of your up and comers, to this year we'll have Mike Levine, who's dealing with pancreatic cancer, as Liz McTiernan, who's was paralyzed in a scuba diving accident. So we'll have, last year we did 56 interviews leading into the Ironman. And we do our championship edition on Sunday with at the Four Seasons, which is very special. So the Four Seasons sends limos to pick up the top 3 men and women and bring them out to the Four Seasons for breakfast with their families as well as the interview. But we have Poncho Man is our ukulele player who plays leading into and out of each interview. And so it's really fun. And what I like about it is this is the most important week of the year for these athletes. And these are 10 to 15 minute interviews. And they're fun. And the idea is when you can see how stressed people are, and then they hear Poncho Man playing, and you can just see them loosen up. It's like, okay, it's going to be 10 to 15 minutes. I can put up with this idiot for 10 to 15 minutes of him asking asinine questions. And it's fun. I love what the athletes bring to the table. All of them have amazing backgrounds, and to a certain degree, the same reason I started the radio show, people aren't just numbers. People aren't just stats. Jan Frodeno is not just a 2-time Ironman World Champion. He's a guy whose mother was afraid he would drown surfing and put him in swim classes, right? Kaisa Saleh, who finished 5th last year, was 12 years old when she watched Pauli Kiru, another Finnish athlete, do the Ironman and finish 2nd. And she told her dad, I want to do an Ironman. And he was like, well, when you're older. She said, no, I want to do it now. He's like, what? So she convinced him that she wanted to ride 180 kilometers on her little pink mountain bike. And they go out and they ride loops and end up at grandma's house and supposed to have breakfast. And little Kaisa looks at the odometer and sees that they only did 172K. She's like, no. We got to do another 8K. We got to be 180K. Now she's one of the best in the world. I mean, I love the backstory. I love what people have overcome to get here because, for most of your pro triathletes, they didn't start out going like a basketball or football or baseball player who were identified when they were 7 years old as a talent in this sport. Most of them come from, like Lucy Charles was a great swimmer and got to a point where she just, she was having shoulder issues and wasn't going to be, wasn't ever going to make a living as a swimmer and fell into the sport of triathlon more for rehab than anything else. Next thing you know, she's one of the best in the world. So those are the stories that I think resonate. Those are the stories that make a difference. And those are the stories that get people at home off the couch to go, well, wait a second. They didn't start out as some uber athlete. They became an Uber athlete. I don't need to become an Uber athlete, but I certainly can get out there and participate in a short triathlon or a 5K run.
Yeah, it just gives that they're real people, and they're not, like you said, you don't have some special magic talent that you worked hard to get here, but that they, given their little bit more background on their personality and how they got there and race day, like you said, it's just everyone has their own story and everyone has their own journey, and what obstacles they had to overcome to get there. Sometimes it's not just super easy to get there, that level, right. Especially. So it's great you get to hear that. And I see and hear the passion in your voice and how you probably make them all feel relaxed, and the kind of guy that makes everyone smile and laugh when they see you too. So it's probably perfect timing for them to do a little therapy session and let loose a little bit, let their guard down.
I hope I'm assuming they enjoy it. We always have a good time. I care about all of them as people, and nothing's better than if you can make a living doing what you love, which is what these athletes are trying to do. That's what it's all about. That's what we've done. That's it. All I did was I don't want to go and sit in the cubicle. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I want to make a living doing what I love and following my dreams and following my passion. I want these athletes to do exactly the same thing.
What is your game plan for yourself and your business next 5 years and 10 years? What's your future?
5 years. Well, I'm over at CAF on a regular basis. So we're, what I want to do, if you'd ask me dreams with CAF, what I want to do is eventually, travel around the country and meet. We meet a lot of our grant. In April, we do our grant distribution. Like I mentioned, 2,448 grants last year, totaling $3.7 million. I'd love to travel the country and meet most of our grant recipients. I think that would be awesome. Also, this year we did our Breakfast with Bob show from the Boston Marathon. We did it from Ironman Mount Tremblant. We did it from, I know I'm forgetting somewhere else.
You interviewed my he used to be at our Mark Allen team, Chad Colburn, who did amazing there. He did.
At which one?
Mount Tremblant. Yeah, Chad did it.
Oh.
You interviewed him.
Oh, yeah. Chad was on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's, I love that. You go to new places and tell a few stories and get to learn some new stories. It's, there's nothing better. I mean, a triathlon is its own universal language. Mm-hmm. We've done the show from Challenge Roth, from Challenge Dubai, it's now Ironman Dubai, and, Dubai, Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Atlantic City. I mean, we've done the show from a lot of places, and the response, and we're at New York, trying the Lifetime New York this year. The response has been wonderful. People are listening to the shows. I think we had 520,000 downloads of the podcast last year, and we had 250,000 views of the breakfast show from Kona last year. So the fact that people are liking it and I like it, that's all that matters.
That's great. Well, it sounds like you're having an amazing time and enjoying life and doing what you love to do. So that's ideally what we hopefully all could do.
Exactly.
So what is your predictions for Hawaii this year in Kona Ironman World Champions? Do you have predictions?
It's interesting. It's interesting. If you had asked me yesterday, because that's why people always say, "What's your prediction?" I said, "Well, until I actually talk to people Ironman week and make sure that they're not injured." Because we've had, 2010, you would have said Christy Wellington's going to win her 4th in a row. Yeah. And then she's not at the starting line because she's sick. And Faris El Sultan, and Nora wasn't at the starting line one year in 2007, at the year Chris McCormick won. And Norman Stadler was puking 30 miles in their bike ride.
That's right.
So if you look at how people learn how to win Ironman, and they tend to run off little streaks, Jan Frodeno's won 2 in a row. Daniela Reef's won a couple in a row. It's you can't pick against your defending champions. And if you look at you look at Rachel Joyce, who's been second there and multiple time top 10 finisher. Rachel has done 3 fulls leading into is it 3 or 4? She's done a bunch this year leading in. Yeah, she did Mount Tremblant, she did Whistler.
Oh yeah,
and she did Boulder. Right, so this will be her 4th Ironman. But she's so consistent. She's going to get off the bike and run 306, 307. And, when I look at the other folks, obviously Miranda's not back. She's had a baby. Heather Jackson was third last year, and she's got the mindset that, well, why can't I win? I should be able to do that. Kaisa Sali, first time there. She finishes fifth. Michelle Vesterby has been up there and was sixth last year. She's been fourth. There's a lot of great gals. I'm impressed in terms of newcomers. I like Lucy Charles a lot because she's got that amazing swim background. You can see her and Lauren Brandon, who in Mount Tremblant, Lauren came out of the water. She swam through the men's pros, and she made up the 3-minute difference between the men pros. So I think Lucy Charles and Lauren Brandon, you could see them on a long breakaway with Daniela Reef chasing, and then some other folks behind there. So it's we all know that race eventually comes down to who's going to run a fast marathon. You don't win that race unless you're running in the 240s. You've got to be able to do that. So if you look at it, and what I'm excited about, you've got the top three. Actually, the top four are all back. Jan Frodeno, two-time champion, Sebastian Kienle, who won the year before Jan did. Patrick Lange ran 2:39 last year, right? 2:39 broke Mark Allen's record. Mm-hmm. And Ben Hoffman ran 2:51. He was fourth. But if you asked me a while ago, I would have had Andy Borcherer in there. And Andy's from Germany. He's just announced today that he's not racing. So, Tim O'Donnell, who's been on the podium. Yeah. Boris Stein, Bart Arnotts is somebody people don't talk that much about, but he finished 8th last year and ran 2:48. And he's been in the top 5 before. You've got a former champion, Frederick Van Leerde, and he finished 10th last year, and he's had a phenomenal season. So you really can't count out a lot of these folks. There's so many good people who could have a great race. And, look at Tim Don, who went to Brazil and broke the Ironman distance record, right? So
you never know.
You never know.
Yeah, right? That's what I love about Ironman Hawaii, and the weather too. You never know what's going to happen. Even throughout that day.
It's funny because we talk about the heat and wind all the time, and if you look at the temperature deviation from year to year, it's really not much.
It's the same.
What makes that race so tough is the competition.
Yes.
And when you look at it, most of the time when these guys are going to other Ironman races, there's 2, 3, 4 pros who are going to be a factor. At most Ironman races, except unless it's like Frankfurt or something like that, you've got a number more. But when you come to Kona, there's probably 20 guys in the field who at one time have been in the top 10. So once you finish in the top 10, you got a Pete Jacobs who won in 2012. It's really not done much since. Yeah. But I would never count the guy out. He's run 2:41 there.
Wow.
So who knows if all of a sudden he puts it all together again. We've seen it before. Chris McCormick won in 07, and then in 08 and 09, I think he finished 4th one year, dropped out another year, and then in 10 he won again. And nobody thought he'd be a factor that year. So it's and then after 2010, after he basically identified how to beat Craig Alexander, well then Crowe came back, had one of the better bike splits the following year, and breaks the course record. So yeah, it's really fun to watch because as soon as you start telling somebody, Crowe, you're not a good cyclist. Okay, I won by being a really, really good cyclist and a great runner. Now I'm going to continue to be a great runner, but I'm going to become even a better cyclist. Now stop me.
Yeah, exactly.
So people reinvent themselves all the time. We see it every year.
What you do the rest of the year when after the season's over, rest up, and then figure out the next strategy, hopefully.
Well, if you look at the Dave Scott history, Dave Scott won in Hawaii. And you'd be hard-pressed to pick a lot of other races that Dave Scott won. Because back then, if you won in October, every ad throughout the winter until the season started again in May was Dave Scott, Dave Scott, Dave Scott.
Yeah.
So that sort of established the pattern, Paula as well, that Ironman in Hawaii, the World Championship, is the most important race in the sport. It changes your life. Actually, when I had Jan Frodeno on, we talked about that. And Jan said, I asked him what was more impactful, winning the gold medal or winning the Ironman? Ironman, hands down. It just it's something that touches more people than an Olympic gold in the sport of triathlon.
I know, isn't that crazy?
More. Yeah.
You would think the Olympics would be bigger, but I wondered that
Nope.
doing Ironman Hawaii is bigger than Olympics.
When you look at the contracts for these athletes, the Olympic guys, you look at an Alistair Brownlee or Johnny Brownlee or Javier Gomez, they certainly make a lot of money as an Olympic athlete, no question about it. But winning the Ironman, that's more universal. If you're a triathlete and you're just doing Olympic distance and you're on a plane, the first thing the average person will ask you when they find out you're a triathlete is, "Oh, have you done Ironman?" They're not asking, "Did you do Hamburg? Did you do Gamagori?"
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, we don't care. Did you do that race in Hawaii called the Ironman? That's the one that resonates.
That's all they know.
With 39 years of history.
Well, even people that don't do triathlons or know what Ironman is, anytime you say the word triathlon or you did Ironman, they think it's the one in Hawaii.
Well, here's a funny story. This gal, Linda Sweeney, won the Ironman in 1981. So, she was the third winner. She did it on a bike with a basket on the front, came out of the water, put her towel in the basket, and, rode with tennis shoes on and had her not 8-track, but her cassette player playing White Punks on Dope for the whole bike ride. And she won the race, and I don't think she ever did another triathlon. And so years later, she was dating a guy who was working in nuclear physics, and they were down at Cape Kennedy. And all these, you got rocket scientists in there, you've got astronauts in there. And somebody mentioned that Linda had won the Ironman, and the conversation stopped. Everybody wanted to know about the Ironman. I mean, she goes, "Bob, these were rocket scientists. These are the brightest people in the world. These were astronauts. And all they wanted to know about was the Ironman." It's something that just resonates. It's something that, because the stories aren't just Jan Frodeno winning. It's Dick Hoyt and Rick Hoyt. It's Rudy Garcia Tolson. It's Sarah Reinerson. It's those people overcoming. And the thing that everybody has in common, from you to me to Jan Frodeno, not one of us goes to that starting line knowing if we can finish or not. We're hoping. We have goals, but Madame Pele sort of controls that. Are you going to finish or not finish? We don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what connects the dots for everybody who's treading water in the bay that morning.
Yeah, I can't wait. I love that day. It's so fun to watch. It's just nothing like it than other races. So where are you going to be on race day?
I'm pretty much all over the place on race day. It's really one of my only days off all week. We do, we do our show all week, and then we got the championship there on Sunday, and then I speak at the on Sunday night at the awards. So I'm always looking for stories to tell at the awards ceremony. So I'm out there on the course, and usually I'm out there primarily late at night to meet people and get their stories, and then try to turn those around for the awards banquet the following night.
You're a person you just want to hang out with for a weekend and get all the stories of the whole
There's
since
a lot of
1970s, the triathlon world. You know it all. So you are a good storyteller, and I love your passion and what you've done for the industry. It's not just Ironman, it's everything else, the triathlons and Competitor magazine, everything you've done. Thank you so much for what you've given to us.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Debbie. I appreciate it.
Okay, and where is the best place to find you? Is it the Babbittville?
Babbittville.com. Yeah, Babbittville.com for the radio, and we'll be on Facebook Live for Ironman Week for our Breakfast with Bob show, and we'll start on Monday morning, the 9th of October. It'll be very special. We'll go basically from 8 in the morning till 12:30, 1 o'clock every day.
Well, good deal. Well, I'm flying in that Wednesday and leaving on Monday, so I'll say hi when I see you running around the area.
Thank you.
So, well, good luck with everything. Thanks for your time today, and we wish you all the success, and we'll get everyone to help those Challenge Athletes events. That's something I'd love to get involved in, so thanks for sharing that.
Love it, Debbie. Thank you so much for your time. See you in Kona.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.